without you, baby, I feel worthless. I'm living on the edge. It's been an hour since you've been gone, and that's too long, so come back home. I can't live without you, so I cry for you. Do anything that I can to feel a touch from your hand. Sorry that I want you. You know you're everything I need.
And we have more breaking news. Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs is accused of a lawsuit by R&B singer Cassie claims that she was in a years-long relationship with Combs that also involved. The singer claims Combs trapped her in a cycle of abuse, violence, and the lawsuit claims Combs punched, kicked, and stomped on her, and it alleges Combs blew up a man's car after learning that he was romantically involved with Cassie, whose legal name is Cassandra Ventura.
To no surprise, celebrities and politicians are among those named in cases. It says, New York's Adult Survivors Act suspended the usual legal deadlines to give victims one last chance to file lawsuits over misconduct that occurred years or decades ago. By the time the law expired, more than 3,700 legal claims had been filed, with many of the last few coming against big-name celebrities and a handful of politicians. How convenient. P. Diddy was sued by 3 women. The first case was filed in a federal court by R&B singer Cassie. She accused Combs of 2 more women have come forward with lawsuits. Along with other fake events and characters, we have Jamie Foxx, Bill Cosby, L.A. Reid, R. Kelly, Danny Masterson, the agent Andrew Tate, and more. Remember, Tate went on the Alex Jones show, so that's your first question. Why was Jones promoting this guy? Was Tate paying to appear?
I was on the podcast about four times in the last 4 years. I did one relatively recently.
So four times you went on Alex Jones's podcast.
No, the CIA was most likely fronting the bill. We all remember how Tate came out of nowhere. Does Tate have any qualifications to pontificate on any subject? Has he ever done anything important? No, he is famous only because he is promoted. This is what millions of dollars of promotion will buy you. Before his recent rise, Tate had never been known for anything other than being kicked off Big Brother. He admits to scamming desperate men to make money through his web business and also ran the pyramid scheme Hustlers University. His Wikipedia page admits he is being actively pursued in Romania for. To me, he was just the face of the Old Men Are Pigs project at the time. He has always looked like an agent being paid to be as obnoxious as possible, to further erode the heterosexual relationship, and to drive the wedge between women and men further.
You got your sword, your wife starts talking, you're like, shut up, I decide what I do. Be quiet. Cook.
My guess is all his numbers are faked by Langley bots. There is no chance he had 13 billion views on TikTok or 4.7 million followers on Instagram when it started. And of course, he goes through the script of being charged with and forming an organized crime group to fit the times. All the people being promoted in the world on both sides of every question are people like this. Utter frauds. They have no qualifications, no history of achievement, and often almost no real bio. They are being sold to you only to further your confusion. And that includes the full spectrum of personalities, from this lowest level of Andrew Tate or Kevin Samuels to the highest level. Trump is no different. Remember, Donald Trump was one of the first to be sued under the law when it took effect. For all that was thinking Trump was draining the swamp, you were wrong. Trump was talking about fake news while helping create it.
I have one word for you. You are controlled by by the deep state.
Push the fake news.
And I have one word for you, fake news.
Who are you with? The American people. The American people. Are you military? Not answering that. So you're not military? No. Why are you dressed like military? I'm not.
It's hard to believe the so-called conscious community and other critical thinkers fell for Trump. Of all the people who have allegedly graduated from law school, not one of them can see the trial was a farce. Not just as in rigged, but as in staged in a dummy court by the CIA or some other entity. Fiction.
It's been an hour since you've been gone, and that's too long, so come back.
A civil lawsuit may be a viable option for victims for 3 reasons. 1. The civil burden of proof is lower than the criminal burden of proof. 2. The civil standard of proof is the preponderance of the evidence. 3. A preponderance of the evidence requires that sexual assault victims convince the jury that there is a greater than 50% chance that their claim is true. Basically, the victim won't be filing a lawsuit against a defendant for sexual assault or rape per se. Instead, the victim will file a lawsuit for one of a number of intentional torts. An intentional tort is a wrongful act that causes harm to the victim. After reading that, you may come to understand that the whole idea of civil suits being easier to prove than criminal ones is false in itself, mostly made up to explain how high-profile fake suits like this one are won.
It's been an hour since you've been gone, and that's too long, so
Mainstream media was giving you all the clues, admitting this makes no legal sense. I say that not as a Trump supporter. I don't support Trump.
it's been an hour since you've been gone.
Think of P. Diddy and many others. That is when the idea of concurrent civil suits winning where criminal ones failed comes from. Even this page is spinning the law, telling you that in a civil suit, the jury only needs to believe there is a greater than 50% chance the claims are true. Nope, that isn't what preponderance of evidence means. Or it wasn't in the old days before the CIA took over the courts and definitions. It is true that a web search on this now leads to a bunch of places giving you that 51% definition from some scholars, but in the old days it wasn't defined like that. Those alleged scholars or recent fake scholars are paid to say that. Just think about it. It makes no sense, does it? Would a legal system, criminal, civil, or otherwise, really base itself on something so stupid as a 51% rule? With life as uncertain as it is, do you really think courts or juries are going to award multi-million-dollar settlements based on a difference of 2%?
That's stupid! Use your common sense!
So what human could even weigh evidence that accurately? It is absurd on the face of it. They won't even allow those from poverty-stricken neighborhoods on shows like Deal or No Deal for a shot at $1 million. Just so you know, the lady accusing Trump is Jean Carroll. She was Miss Indiana University in 1963 and Miss Cheerleader USA. In 1965 she appeared on To Tell the Truth. Ironic. We then had a nearly 20-year gap in her bio when, in the mid-80s, she began writing for SNL. In 1993 she landed an advice column in Elle magazine. Why? What were her qualifications for giving anyone advice in 1993? Are SNL writers or ex-cheerleaders gurus now? Is that where you want to go for your information? Carroll was married to black journalist John Johnson, though Johnson's wiki bio has nothing to say about Carroll. But tying into our research here, we find Johnson was the WABC reporter on the fake O.J. Simpson case. He also covered the staged Attica prison riot. Yes, the tangled webs these people weave. If you still don't think Jean Carroll is an agent, you should know that she titled her 2019 memoir What Do We Need Men For? A Modest Proposal, which pretty much says it all. The modest proposal bit is an implication that men are good for nothing but being ground up into dog food, the reference being Jonathan Swift's famous Modest Proposal. So this is a men are pigs split the sexes thing again. Carol has been working on this project for most of her life, since they admitted her column was constantly telling women they didn't need men. If you are a man, maybe you should consider a class action lawsuit against Carol and her publishers and CIA handlers for assault, libel, emotional distress, and civil rights violations. Shouldn't be too hard to find a preponderance of evidence for that. You should also realize that the Donald Trump controversy was staged mostly to promote Carol and help sell this wretched book. Everything Trump do is staged. We are supposed to believe the jury also found Trump had defamed Carol by calling her crazy and saying he wasn't attracted to her.
Then he said terrible things about me, dragged me through the mud, ground my face in the dirt. It was horrible.
Really? I have news for you. The standard for defamation in the US is way higher than that. If the standard were low enough to justify this finding, all of society would collapse under the weight of defamation lawsuits. The late-night talk shows would have to give up all commentary, SNL would be over. And Living Color would have never made it out of the pilot episode.
He is so damn ugly, he's even ugly on the phone.
All opinion segments in the news would have to end, The View would be defunct, and CNN and MSNBC would be put in receivership. The jury did throw out the charge of but found that Trump had battered and Carol 3 decades ago. Really? How did Carol's team prove that? With what preponderance of evidence? The stories don't provide even a single stick was thrown. What evidence could there be 30 years later? Does she still have some old bruises from 1993? Since her story is that she was by Trump in a dressing room in under 3 minutes, there can be no possible evidence of that 30 years later. The whole story is ridiculous. She would need tape, pictures, a confession, or eyewitness testimony, and we are not told there was any of that. If there had been any of that, her lawyers wouldn't have had to bring in a bunch of other crazy lying ladies to tell their stories. Which is exactly why those stories aren't normally admissible as evidence. They are exactly as unverifiable as Carol's story. The courtroom is a venue for verifiable evidence, not for airing old grievances. This is not storytelling hour. If there is no evidence, there can be no preponderance of evidence.
No questions.
You may step down.
With these new projects, all that is out the window. In these CIA dummy courts, they have completely rewritten all the rules of law, and you no longer have people testifying under cross-examination. Instead, you have a long line of family members and friends giving emotional speeches before, during, and after proceedings. You have people involved in the trial giving interviews to the media during the trial. You have the judge televised saying ridiculous things like forbidding mentioning the Constitution in court. It is an absolute clown show, staged not only for people who have never studied the law, but for people who can't spell law. Only an absolute sleepwalking zombie would believe anything now being reported in the news. It's all a script to divide us. There's the women are pigs part of the script, while there is also the men are pigs part. Both work together to split the sexes and split the country. Remember that the media is owned by, can you tell me? That's right, the very rich, the greedy capitalists. So the very rich need your eyes off them, and on fake white fake celebrity cases, fake celebrity controlled female rap. Women have gone crazier than most because they have been targeted psychologically more than most. Especially within the black community. Think of how they promote the negative images of women.
She said, something ain't right. I said, oh man. She said, oh man, the building is on fire. Man, them jokers was big. Size of a quarter doggone. He said, kapooyah, kapooyah. And the boy that hell just came in. I looked at my opened my door, and I looked out my door and started hitting me in my head. I took off running, ran to my restroom, and then I called my mama to see was she all right.
It's upsetting me in my home, girl, because we feel like, well, damn, if you can't go to bed no chase, where the hell could you go?
Spotlighting outrageous men dressed like women, propping up overly ghetto females, and then Jewish writers create shows, movies, and commercials with that character. This is all a part of the plan to make the woman look bad. The CIA and other institutions, including the big ones like Rockefeller, Carnegie, Ford, and Gates, have, as part of Operation Chaos, targeted women and liberals above all others. Men are targeted in the gender wars, even using other puppet celebrities to assist them.
We have seen powerful men in Hollywood. It's been an hour since you've been gone.
But psychologically, women have been targeted earlier, more directly. Men have been targeted physically and psychologically, but with men, the targeting has been more on the surface. Physically, men have had their sperm counts targeted. They have also been targeted with fluoride, estrogen, and other things. They have also been attacked for destroying their relationships. In this way, men are attacked through the loss of women. In other words, women are driven crazy, men lose them, then the men collapse, either physically or mentally. But the women were the first and primary target, you see. Men were the secondary target since they would be brought down through the loss of women. The world and our way of thinking is scripted. They tricked you out of your thoughts.
Watch some TV. I gotta watch some TV. HBO and TV. PBS and A&E.
1 year we are told one thing and the next year we are told the opposite. 1 year a word means X and the next year it means not X. 1 year eggs are healthy, the next year they are unhealthy. 1 year Bill Cosby is a hero, the next year he is a 1 decade the earth is going to freeze from global cooling, the next it is going to drown from global warming. 1 decade the Democratic Party was the party of the common man, the next the Republican Party was. Women's sports should not be interfered with. Well, no, they should be open to Women are more open to psyops. They may be less guarded, more emotional, and more social. This makes them easier for intelligence to target them. In fact, why not influence men to become women and then run the same projects over and over? But it isn't just a matter of greater susceptibility, since intelligence knows how to craft a message to an audience. Eyes and energies have to be diverted into an endless line of manufactured events and online characters. As part of this destabilization, we saw a fantastic acceleration of universal gaslighting, trying to convince people they weren't seeing what they were seeing. Hence, the Mandela effect and the huge increase in mass The mass not only increased levels of fear, they also acted as gaslighting, since the narrative soon fell apart. So the news itself began to look like a hologram, seeming true one moment and false the next, but mostly made of mist. Your average person didn't know what to believe anymore, hence the destabilization. Drug doses were also increased across the board at the same time, for the same purpose. Weed was decriminalized, and the governors hoped everyone would just get stoned. Antidepressants, sleeping pills, and all other pills, prescription and non-prescription, have been on a steep increase since the 1950s, the numbers becoming more after 2000. This destabilization was meant to make people feel powerless so that they would stop asking questions. So 2020 arrived and COVID was rolled out. When those mostly failed, they manufactured an election crisis. That mostly failed, then they appeared to be manufacturing an alien invasion. Flat Earth plants.
Mark Sargent thinks the moon landing was a hoax.
And more. What we are taught is upside down, as usual. On purpose.
And the truth shall set you free!
The CIA wants to ruin a woman, so it targets her, So in reality the woman really is a victim, but they don't see it that way. The Gender Bender Projects has been around for years to help with
It's been hours since you've been gone.
It's one of the biggest crimes against humanity ever, or even the biggest crimes against humanity currently being featured. The purposeful destruction of and and sister issues are usually sold as a continuation of the liberation project of the 1960s, tied to feminism, gay rights, and human rights. But that is all a smokescreen, since none of this is occurring naturally. It isn't any form of progress. Trans is just a part of a much larger project, and I use the word project on purpose. It is another CIA project, founded and funded by the Phoenician Navy for specific purposes. There is no doubt about that, and you have to be dead asleep not to see it. The destruction of masculinity lowers the threat of revolution. Specific groups can be targeted, such as the poor or the financially useless, making this a form of mass eugenics, and it can also be used by the Phoenicians to target a more general enemy, Gentiles. By giving the ruling class a pass on this sexual destruction, their people will be given a breeding advantage. Knowing this project is fake, they will be able to avoid it, while the rest of us are decimated. Perhaps you can understand that there is no such thing as it isn't a real movement, being no more than another CIA project. Most of the you are sold in the media aren't even by the given meaning, since they haven't had any surgery. They are just cross-dressing agents from CIA actors' equity. You can believe they are real if you like, but I don't. The whole idea of government forcing people to accept CIA projects is the very definition of tyranny. Forcing people to believe in is like forcing them to believe in the moon landing. They want us to believe their scripts. That is a key here, and I don't want you to have missed it. Because that is how they break you. Applying this terrible pressure to you to force you to say you believe things you don't believe in order to remain in the group is the greatest tool they have in destroying and all these other things. The destruction of science, art, health, family, and all the other top 10 would not be possible without first destroying the individual, and this is how they accomplish that. For once you have reached a point where you will say you believe something you don't, you are toast. You have been broken. Sounds awful, but the rulers love it. They installed it on purpose since it achieves many things for them. To start with, it makes you a consuming machine, consuming psychiatric and other medical products at an accelerating pace. But you become a better consumer of everything else as well, including compensating products of all kinds, including alcohol, tobacco, junk food, guns, ammo, and entertainment. Being broken makes you more desperate to fit in, which makes you even more susceptible to the media and all its propaganda. They want you to believe females don't exist anymore. The words female and male are being delisted as well. You aren't a male or a female anymore, you are a person with identity and infinite freedom, except the freedom to refuse all this. If you refuse, you will be delisted. It has only gotten worse since the rise of the internet. A small part of the internet is composed of agents inserting themselves everywhere and creating confusion. This is why we see creators making content unable to tell if certain celebrities are really women, so they make videos calling real females men. This is a part of the confusion. This is why most low-level agents are hired. Simply as a spanner in the works. They infiltrate the opposition and turn it into a crud. The The woman has been targeted by the CIA, which is owned by the richest people. The problem is, almost no women actually do place the blame there. They want you to target and blame the males around you. Most men, like most Jews, aren't part of any patriarchy or otherwise, since they have no power and make no decisions. Unless they are CIA, most likely they wish you no harm and only want to get along. Most likely they have been targeted just like you have. They have been destabilized as much as anyone else. So if you're wondering about
It's been an hour since you've been gone, and that's too long, so come back home. I can't live without you, so I'll cry for you. Do anything that I can. To feel a touch from your hand.